I never imagined a millionaire's rage could lead to a moment of unbelievable bravery. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It all happened so fast, like a car crash in slow motion. I stood there, frozen, a lump in my throat, my heart pounding against my ribcage. The atmosphere crackled with tension, the air thick with fear. Lucas, my brother, had always been the fearless one. With tousled hair and a mischievous grin, he could light up a room. But there he was, cowering in front of Victor Moretti, the millionaire whose name sent chills down my spine. Victor's eyes, cold as steel, bore into Lucas, a thunderstorm brewing behind them. The opulence of the grand mansion around USA marble foyer, chandeliers casting shadows felt suffocating. Nobody dared to breathe. It was like we were all part of a macabre play, witnessing the unraveling of a life. Family friends gathered, whispers and murmurs filled the room, each word feeling like a knife. They glanced at us, their expressions a mix of shock and pity. I felt the heat rising in my cheeks, anger and fear battling for dominance. Victor's voice cut through the silence, sharp and unforgiving. He demanded repayment for a debt none of us understood. Lucas shifted, hands trembling at his sides. I could almost hear the crackle of his nerves. My stomach twisted into knots, tears pricking at the corners of my eyes as I stood helplessly by. I wanted to reach out, to pull him back, but my feet felt rooted to the ground. The thought of losing him was unbearable. As Lucas stammered, struggling to find the right words, Victor's face contorted with rage. The room darkened, like clouds rolling in before a storm. Then, something changed. The corners of Lucas' mouth turned upward, unexpected strength igniting in his eyes. What was he going to do? Time stretched, heartbeats now thunderous in my ears. I wanted to scream for him to run, to escape. But instead, he took a step forward, his voice steady as he faced the raging millionaire. Enough. The word echoed, the room went silent. Victor staggered back, shock etched on his face. What was happening? I held my breath. I never knew my brother could stand so tall, his silhouette framed by the opulent chaos. My heart soared even as it shattered. Was this the moment everything would change? Could this be bravery or just madness? The tension was palpable. What would Victor do next? The room held its breath, and so did I. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. A heavy silence enveloped the room as Victor's gaze shifted, momentarily caught off guard by Lucas's fierce declaration. For an agonizing heartbeat, it seemed like time had paused entirely, the weight of uncertainty resting on all our shoulders. I could sense the collective breath being held, the anticipation so thick that it felt like it could suffocate us. And amid all this chaos, in that moment of suspended disbelief, I dared to hope. Victor's eyes narrowed, calculating, and I could almost see the gears turning in his mind. He took a deliberate step back, regaining his composure, his movements fluid and predatory, like a beast circling its prey. Brave words from a boy who doesn't know the depths of this world, he sneered, his voice dripping with condescension. Do you think that just because you raise your voice, you can change your reality? Lucas squared his shoulders, his resolve seemingly unyielding. You don't scare me, Victor. You might have money, but that doesn't make you powerful. You're just a man hiding behind a wall of fear. The boldness in his words ignited a flicker of pride in my chest, but the surrounding tension soon quelled that flame, leaving behind a cold dread. Victor's smug smile faded, replaced by a dark intensity. Let's see how brave you are when the stakes are raised, he said, his voice low, tainted with malice. I could feel my stomach drop at his implication, dread pulled in the pit of my stomach. What more could he take from us? Suddenly, from the corner of the room, a soft voice broke through. Leave them alone, Victor. It was Claudia, a family friend, her round face betraying her worry despite her steady tone. This isn't you. You don't need to do this. She stepped forward, her shaking hands held out in a gesture of peace. I could hardly recognize the bravado I had just witnessed from Lucas. It felt like there was a delicate fragility being tested, a sliver of hope that was dangerously close to shattering. I watched Victor's expression shift again, this time a flicker of uncertainty crossing his features. Maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance to defuse the situation. It's simple, Claudia, Victor said sharply, his temper flaring once again. I'm not leaving until this debt is settled. Thief brought shame to my name, and there's a price to pay. Lucas took a step backward, his bravado faltering. His bravest moment felt like it was slipping away, sand between fingers. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the uncertainty gnawing at his confidence. What does that mean? He pressed, desperation coloring his voice. What do you want from us? Victor leaned in, a twisted grin creeping across his face. Oh, it's simple. Repayment. But not in cash. No, that would be far too easy. His words hung in the air, heavy like an anvil, each syllable steeped in spite. Every instinct in me screamed at Lucas to walk away, to back down and preserve whatever was left of our dignity. But why did the shadows of our past always seem to loom larger than the hope we clung to? My thoughts were a whirlwind of fear and regret, 1,000 scenarios playing out in my mind. In that moment, something broke inside me. I couldn't stand idly by, could not watch as Lucas danced with danger. I steadied my resolve, stepped forward and interjected, my heart racing. What do you want? I asked, my voice shaky but defiant. Victor's eyes flicked toward me, curiosity igniting in their dark depths. Ah, the sister speaks. How endearing. You're brave too, in your own little way. He let out a mirthless laugh. I want a favor, one that will require you to prove your loyalty. You see, money can be made, but trust? That's far harder to come by in this world. My heart sank. What kind of favor could lead us down a path paved with thorns? My instinct screamed for us to back away, the air was thick with danger. Yet in the depths of my wilting hope, a flicker of defiance ignited within me. What do we have to do? I asked, heart pounding. The unyielding gaze of Victor Moretti bore down upon me like an impending storm, and the world around us began to dissolve into a blurriness of desperation and fear. Meet me tomorrow night. There's a gathering I expect you both to attend, he replied, every word heavy with implications. A chance to show your worth. A chance to save your family. But choose wisely, kids. If you fail, well, let's just say there are consequences. The room held its breath, an electric tension swirling in the air. I could see the flickers of uncertainty in Lucas' eyes, fear contorting his features as he searched for something, anything, to anchor our hopes. But I knew then, even amidst the chaos and trepidation, that we had just stepped into a darkness from which there was no easy escape. As Victor turned to leave, a shadow passed over me, the lingering energy of the encounter settling like dust in the wake of a storm. What had we just agreed to? My heart raced as I looked at Lucas, the unspoken thoughts filling the space between us. Before the weight of the moment could swallow me whole, I heard my phone buzz in my pocket, a stark intrusion into our chaotic reality. Pulling it out, I noticed a notification flash across the screen, a call from the hospital. My breath caught in my throat. What now? I felt my heart plummet, the uncertainty reaching a peak. I turned to Lucas, dread pooling in my stomach. It's the hospital, I whispered, fear tasting bitter on my tongue. In that moment, our fragile illusion of control shattered as I answered the call, the voice on the other end delivering news I never anticipated. Your mother, she's been in an accident. The words echoed in my mind like a chilling refrain, each syllable laced with that sharp twinge of panic. She's been in an accident, the voice continued, and I felt the world tilt. My legs threatened to buckle beneath me, leaving me grasping for anything to tether my spiraling thoughts. What happened? Is she? I struggled to form coherent questions, tears threatening to spill as fear coursed through every vein in my body. Lucas' grip tightened around my arm, grounding me even as his eyes widened in horror. She's in critical condition, but we're doing everything we can. You need to come to the hospital now, the voice replied. I felt like I was being dragged into an abyss of uncertainty, the very air I breathed heavy with suffocation. Without a moment's hesitation, I turned to Lucas, my heart a battlefield of dread and urgency. "We have to go. We have to see her." His expression betrayed the turmoil brewing within him, a reflection of my own fears mirrored back across our shared vulnerability. We raced outside, the weight of Victor's dark demands fading beneath the urgency of a far graver concern. Beneath a blanket of stars, I felt a keen awareness of how fragile our existence truly was. Each step I took felt heavy, but I couldn't afford to succumb to despair. Not now. The car ride felt eternal, seconds stretching into lifetimes. The hospital stood as a fortress of hope and fear, its antiseptic smell mingling with the warnings of heartbreak that echoed in my mind. As we navigated the quiet halls, each step felt like an assault on my senses, anxiety pulling tight around my chest. When we finally reached her room, I stood frozen at the door, heart hammering against my ribs. Lucas pushed the door open, and a soft gasp escaped my lips. My mother lay frail and surrounded by tubes, the rhythmic beeping of machines punctuating the air with an urgency I wished I could escape. "Her mom," I whispered, tears prickling at the corners of my eyes as I stepped closer. The reality of her condition bore down upon me like a crushing weight. She looked so small, so fragile, and I felt utterly powerless. Just as I reached for her hand, a shudder ran through me, and my world came crashing down. To my relief, her eyelids fluttered open, revealing the familiar depths of her eyes. They gleamed with warmth that seemed to fight through the shadows. "Sweetheart?" Her voice was weak but held an unmistakable affection. It tethered me, reminding me of the life still pulsing beneath the surface. "I am here, Mom." "I'm so sorry," I choked out, unable to suppress my fear. I needed her to know she wasn't alone, that my bond with her was unbreakable, even in this fractured moment. The tears streamed freely down my cheeks, mingling with the overwhelming sense of dread that had settled there. Lucas moved closer, offering a comforting presence as he leaned against the wall, his gaze steady but quietly understanding the battleground of that moment. I could hear the faint echoes of machines, but his presence reminded me that I wasn't fighting this battle alone. "I am sorry, I should have don't," my mom whispered, her shaky hand finding mine. "You're doing everything right. Just be here." Those simple words shattered the barrier of sorrow that had been pressing down on me. I could feel the warmth of her love enveloping me, and I clenched her hand tighter, wishing I could convey all my fears into that single embrace. Suddenly, a figure entered the room, a rush of stern-eyed doctors and nurses. Each exchange between them threatened to spiral into uncertainty again, but I stayed tethered to her, letting our connection be my anchor. "Mom, we're going to need to run some tests," one of the doctors said, and I felt panic rise like bile in my throat. As they began to move with practiced efficiency, I caught Lucas studying me, his expression softening, a shared understanding passing silently between us. It was raw and painful, charged with the weight of everything happening around us. Then, the door swung open again with a startling force. Without warning, Victor strode inside, his eyes alight with an intensity that made my skin crawl. My heart raced as I recalled the dangerous dealings we were thrust into along with our father's legacy. Could he be here to capitalize on our vulnerability? My desperation spiraled. I needed to protect my mother, but fear gripped me tighter than any binding cord. She? Victor's voice cut through the thick atmosphere, and I could feel the way his presence filled the room with palpable tension. "I get out. Just leave us alone," I snapped, brimming with fear, anger, an instinct to shield what was left of my family. But my voice wavered under the weight of the uncertainty he brought with him. Victor's smile was devoid of warmth. "You're going to need my help more than you realize," he said, the implications of his words wrapping around my throat like a vice. "And in this moment, loyalty from you could make all the difference." The doctor paused, measuring the air, sensing the tension electric enough to ignite. The prospect of seeking help from a man I despised felt like a betrayal I couldn't even fathom, yet my heart raced, torn between protecting my family and the looming threat of Victor's hold over everything we held dear. As the machines beside my mother beeped steadily, reality crashed down. We needed to act, to make a choice, but at what cost? The room enveloped us in a desperate darkness, and the reality settled heavily on my shoulders. Tomorrow's gathering loomed ahead, fragile yet compelling, and in that moment, I realized just how far I was willing to go to safeguard my family, under any circumstance, in a world dictated by power and fear. The futures I thought lay ahead were beginning to weave into threads of fragile alliances and unmistakable danger, but in the depths of my heart, one lingering thought echoed, what horrific mercy could a millionaire's rage unearth? The questions filled the air anew, demanding answers that could tip the balance of everything I held dear. The moment hovered heavy in the air, the spectre of Victor lacing my mother's hospital room with a tension that felt suffocating. I glanced toward the machines, each beep, a reminder of fleeting time. Each moment spent in this liminal space felt imbued with consequences. The uncertainty gnawed at my insides, revealing fractures in the facade of control I thought I had maintained. Get out. You're not welcome here, I spat, my voice steadier than the fear resonating through me, a courageous lie crafted to shield my shattering world. Victor's gaze locked onto mine, unyielding, and a part of me wanted to cower, to look away and hide. His casual indifference to the chaos he perpetuated made me sick, his confidence an armor against the vulnerability of my truth. He stepped closer, the air growing thick with hostility and distrust. You really think you can keep me out? Your mother needs help, and I'm the only one who can steer this ship. I wanted to scream, to fling accusations at him until he crumbled beneath the weight of his own greed. You don't care about her. You just want leverage over us, just like you always have. My voice shook with the resurgence of anger and fear coursing through me. Leverage is necessary when it comes to survival, he replied coolly, dismissing my sentiment as though it was trivial, irrelevant. Trust me, neither of us can afford to let pride govern our choices, especially now. The doctors moved about the room, collecting data and necessities, but Victor's presence loomed large, eclipsing whatever professional sanctuary this space offered. Desperation clawed at me. I needed to protect my mother, and yet the very idea of working with Victor felt like inviting a storm into our lives. Leave, I begged again, my voice cracking for fear that I might shatter into pieces. You're not needed here. Just go away. But in that moment, I noticed that Lucas had stepped between us, his expression resolute. You don't get to dictate terms here, Victor. She's not just a pawn in your game. His words cut through the electricity, his loyalty shimmering like a shield against the encroaching darkness. Victor's smile twisted, revealing a predatory nature as he surveyed Lucas. Is this your knight in shining armor? How cute! But let me remind you, there are battles you cannot fight alone. He gestured dismissively as if Lucas were little more than an annoying facet of my existence that he could wipe away like dust. Just tell us what you want, Lucas said, voice steady even as tension coiled tighter. Don't drag us deeper into whatever twisted plans you've concocted. This is about her, not power plays. If you truly care, just help her. Something flickered in Victor's expression, an unsettling tension beneath the surface, and for a fraction of a heartbeat, I believed there could be truth buried in those words. Perhaps you're right. But I need something from you first, an assurance, a chance to secure your family's future. I shook my head, feeling nauseated by the calculus of bartering human lives. You're wrong. Our future shouldn't have to be tied to your unreliable whims. Then I guess we're back at square one. Your mother's health hangs in the balance too, Victor replied coolly, and an unwelcome chill swept through the room. An echoing beep from the machines drew our attention to my mother, and the gravity of our reality crashed over us anew. I could not afford to lose her hope, her strength. She deserved better than to be held hostage by Victor's volatile intentions. Amid the anguish swirling around us, an unexpected kindness slipped in, shining through the bitterness. One of the nurses, a kindly woman with soft eyes, stepped closer and gently held my mother's hand. I believe we can help more effectively if we're not battling each other. Her voice was soothing, an unyielding balm amidst the anxiety. In that small, selfless moment, I caught a glimmer of hope. I just needed to keep everyone focused on my mother, remind them all of what truly mattered. Together, I urged, voice trembling, we should be working together to help her. Lucas nodded, the fierce determination returning to his eyes. This isn't about you, Victor. You want to play games, then fine. But the moment you make demands that jeopardize her, it's over. But Victor's gaze burned into mine, a tumult of shadows lurking beneath. Don't say I didn't warn you. Choices come with consequences, dear sister. As he turned to leave, his last words hung in the air like smoke, threatening and chilling but also liberating. If this was a game, I couldn't falter. This wasn't just about survival, it was about love, vulnerability, and the unbreakable bonds worth fighting for. But beneath it all, an uneasiness gnawed at me, a secret I did not yet understand that Victor was holding close, one that could change everything. And as I looked back at my mother, surrounded by love but still trapped in the throes of uncertainty, I wondered, what more was I poised to lose? The nurse's comforting hand squeezed my mother's, and the flicker of hope entwined with fear. Could we really face the storm? Would tomorrow's gathering unveil truths that shattered our world, or would we discover an unexpected ally amidst darkness? The answers felt tantalizingly close yet agonizingly out of reach, leaving me dangling on the brink of revelation, and in that uncertainty, a new question sliced through the fog: who was I really fighting for, and were the lengths I was willing to go worth the price? The days stretched on, each one marked by a painful rhythm of hope and despair. The sterile smell of antiseptic no longer felt unfamiliar, it clung to me like a second skin. Each morning, I would arrive at the hospital, where the delicate balance of life hung in the air, only to find my mother ensnared in a world between waking and dreaming. The machines that once felt so invasive now seemed like participants in our family's narrative, each beat punctuating the progression of time spent away from her. Lucas had leapt into the role of protector, organizing the small details in our lives that seemed inconsequential in the face of larger battles. He had taken charge of speaking with the doctors while I sat with my mother, reading her favorite books like a lifeline to the past. His quiet strength became my anchor, and while a part of me was grateful for his unwavering support, the weight of the situation pulled between us like silent sorrow, one addressed yet profound. Yet Victor's shadow loomed large. His presence was a specter that haunted the periphery of our lives, creeping into conversations with doctors and nurses, letting them know he was still a vital figure in this labyrinth of survival. I couldn't help but feel that every time he entered the room, he injected a dose of poison into our fragile optimism. It was during one of those long afternoons that the hospital door opened with an unmistakable familiarity. Victor, clad in his tailored suit, oozed an air of forced confidence, instantly drawing my ire. His eyes flickered with a predatory glimmer as he sought me out amidst the chaos of sterile surroundings. "I have news," he announced, his smirk bordering on smug. I felt a rush of defiance spiral through me. "What could you possibly have to say that affects us in any way?" He ignored my question, his attention gravitating towards my mother. "There are options," he began, and an unease unfurled in me. "I can expedite the necessary care if we can agree on certain terms." What does that even mean? I clenched my fists tightly, unwilling to let fear take root. "Are you seriously insinuating that you can bend reality to your will because of your wealth?" His eyes darkened momentarily. "I'm suggesting that ignoring help in desperate times can lead to regret." "What I need is for you to disappear," I shot back, bitterness lacing my words. "You've already taken too much from us." Victor's gaze held mine with an intensity that made my heart race. "You might be surprised what you stand to gain if you let go of that stubbornness, and perhaps a bit of your pride." Before I could retort, Lucas stepped forward, instinctively standing as a barrier between Victor and me. "We would rather take our chances than be pawns in your game," he declared fiercely. The tension in the air thickened, a standoff designed to break us, yet it also crystallized the determination that came from desperation. Suddenly, an unexpected aid emerged in the form of the nurse from before, the same one who had held my mother's hand with kindness. Her presence was like a gentle breeze cutting through the tension. "Mr. Victor," she said, her voice cool and calm, "this is not the place to play power games. The well-being of this family must be your priority." For a brief moment, Victor seemed taken aback, the mask slipping just enough to reveal a flicker of something vulnerable. Was it humanity? Regret? Whatever it was, it quickly vanished behind his carefully constructed facade. "I suggest you deal with the realities of this situation before it's too late," he replied, his tone laced with warning as he turned to leave. With his absence came a fragile silence, as if the room collectively exhaled. But as I looked back to my mother, who lay in fragile stillness, it felt like Victor had been merely a harbinger, the storm ahead of a far larger tempest. "What do we do now?" I whispered, turning to Lucas. He placed a supportive hand on my shoulder, his warmth and immediate comfort amidst the chaos. "We keep fighting for her. That's all we can do." His conviction ignited something within me, a soft flicker of hope, reminding me that we had right on our side. But that night, as I lay restless upon the hospital bed's hard frame, staring into the darkness of the room, a cold realization settled over me. There were secrets that Victor hadn't revealed, layers of a scheme that could reshape our entire reality. What if he had something we weren't prepared for? A revelation that could shatter the fragile strands of hope we were clinging to? As uncertainty gnawed away at me, a single thought replayed: how far was Victor willing to go? What price was he poised to extract, and could we withstand the upheaval weighted beneath his demands? Though we were attempting to battle his influence together, I plastered a smile on my face as Lucas returned to my side, and we exchanged quiet reassurance. But that was when I overheard them speaking in hushed tones just outside my mother's room, two nurses, their recommendations weighing heavily in my heart. Be careful. There's more to this than they realize. Victor isn't just a businessman fueled by greed. There are whispers about family legacies and dark dealings that threaten to explode. In that moment, a foreboding sense washed over me, drowning out the flicker of victory we had ignited within ourselves. What secrets did Victor hold, and what consequences would we all have to face in due time? The storm was brewing, and we were standing on the precipice, teetering between hope and despair. I understood then that the fight was far from over. We were merely at the beginning of something monumental, and the truths left to discover could change everything if we dared to embark on that journey. Each day repeated a familiar cycle of anguish, but today felt different. The daylight filtering through the hospital window cast softer shadows, as if even the universe sensed the weight carried within these four walls. I entered my mother's room, heart racing and hope flickering. Lucas was there, as he so often was, but at that moment he appeared troubled, his brow furrowed in concentration as he spoke with one of the doctors. I believe her vitals are stabilizing, the doctor noted cautiously, glancing from Lucas to my mother, who lay motionless, her breaths almost ghostly. But there's still a long road ahead. We should prepare for the possibility of complications. My stomach twisted at the word complications, the unending cycle of fear and uncertainty already cemented in my chest. I forced myself to meet Lucas's gaze, in which I sought solace and reassurance. What did the doctor say? I asked, my voice a fragile whisper. He turned to me, and his eyes mirrored my own worry. It's a waiting game. We have to stay vigilant and be prepared for whatever comes next. His words were solid yet gently tethered to the gravity of our situation. As the hours went by, I found myself wandering the hospital's fluorescent corridors more often than not, searching for fragments of distraction amid writers' notes and others lost in their own storms. I observed families near the chapel, hands entwined, laughter erupting as they reminisced, a sound so alien in the realm of my existence. Outside, a child tugged on his mother's hand, eager to explore the stained glass windows, his innocence a stark contrast to the heaviness tethered to me. But the deeper I observed, the more resilience began to grow within me. There existed, somewhere obscured in this anguish, threads of hope sown by the compassion of others. One such moment came from a janitor, an elderly man named Carlos, who noticed my exhausted state whilst I sat alone on a cold bench. "You look like you could use this," he said, offering me a small cup of coffee. "Thank you," I replied, allowing the warmth to seep through my fingers as I slowly wrapped them around the cup. It felt almost surreal, such simple kindness amidst the turmoil. "Do you have family in here?" Carlos nodded slowly, a wistful expression settling on his face. "My wife had a long battle with illness. I brought her here many moons ago." His voice quivered, and I could sense a well of pain concealed behind his words. "It's hard to keep hope alive. Just know that you're not alone." I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat a reminder of my own struggles. In trying, it's just so hard to see the light. He knelt beside me, his eyes filled with an ancient wisdom. "Sometimes, they don't give you the light. You have to become it." The words landed upon my heart like a soft balm, waking something deep within their understanding that resilience could be sparked even in profound despair. Renewed by this small moment of humanity, I turned my focus to my mother, determined to channel the courage I had gained into something tangible. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the room in hues of twilight, I picked up a storybook we often read when I was a child. My fingers trembled as I turned the pages, each word meant to stitch her back to life. "Mom, if you can hear me," I began, choking on the weight of tears swelling within. "You need to fight. I believe in you like you always believed in me. Each line I read felt imbued with a vibrancy, a spell to conjure her back, as if the world outside could fold in upon itself and whisper to her heart. Suddenly, Lucas burst in, his voice urgent as he approached. I've just spoken to the doctor again. They think there might be a possible alternative treatment, but it could take time to arrange. Those hopeful words buoyed me, yet doubt began to creep in again. What do we do until then? Wait for a miracle. With a determined glint in his eye, he grabbed my shoulders, grounding me. We'll advocate for her, together. If we need to raise concerns or explore other options, I won't let them sideline us. We're in this for the long haul, no matter how much Victor wants to control the narrative. Even as my heart swelled with gratitude, shadows danced just outside our door, Victor's lingering presence reminding me that our fight was only beginning. The whispers I had overheard rang like bells in my head, darker motivations, family legacies that twisted destinies, and the knowledge that he might have powers beyond what I had always believed. As dusk enveloped the day, I glanced at the door. A movement flickered in my periphery. A nurse stood hesitantly outside, her expression revealing the weight of an unwelcome message. You two need to step outside for a moment, she urged, her tone serious. There's something you both need to know about Victor. My heart plummeted, the shadows of dread pouring into the room as Lucas and I shared a look, a mutual fear lingering unspoken between us. What other secrets lurked within the veins of our lives, ready to surge forth? As we stepped outside, I braced myself for the revelations, knowing deep down we were teetering closer to a truth that could unravel everything and expose our hidden battles against the storm, should we have the courage to embrace them. The fluorescent lights buzzed over our heads as the nurse led us down the sterile corridor, the air thick with urgency and uncertainty. Each step felt heavier, as if gravity had begun to press down on my chest. I glanced at Lucas, whose face had turned pale, worries etched deeply into the lines of his forehead. What do you think it could be? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper, filled with an anxious tremor. I don't know, I replied, swallowing hard. But it feels like it could change everything. The nurse stopped in front of a conference room, her eyes avoiding ours as she fitted the key into the lock. As she swung the door open, I felt a chill creep up my spine. The room was sparse, with a long table surrounded by uncomfortable chairs and whiteboards filled with diagrams I couldn't decipher. Please, take a seat, she instructed gently before stepping back. Her practiced calmness was a stark contrast to the chaos brewing in my heart. As we sat down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was about to be revealed, something that could unravel the fragile fabric of hope I had stitched together in the last few days. Lucas' hand found mine under the table, the warmth was grounding, reminding me that I wasn't alone. Minutes passed like hours until the door creaked open again, revealing a tall figure wrapped in a finely tailored suit that screamed power and authority. Victor Stroud, my estranged father, stepped inside, his demeanor cold and unyielding. Tension erupted in the room, his presence was like a storm cloud, gathering puffs of danger around us. Thank you for coming, he said, his voice smooth yet sharp, cutting through the tension in the air. I believe it's time for us to discuss your mother's treatment. I blinked in disbelief, anger boiling beneath my skin. Yo-Yo-Ree, the last person I want to discuss anything with regarding my mother. Understandable, he replied, an inflection of amusement flashing in his eyes. But the stakes have changed. There is something we need to address. Lucas' grip tightened around my hand, lending strength as I faced Victor, memories of his cold indifference swirling in my mind. What do you mean? What could you possibly care about? Victor leaned against the table, his gaze intense. Your mother's situation is more critical than you realize. The current treatment options are impacting her significantly, and I have access to resources that can provide her with a better chance. Fury bubbled in my throat. Is this your idea of a twisted olive branch? What do you want in return? He sighed, shifting his weight as if he were changing gears. It's not transactional. I want my family to be whole again completely. The words hung in the air, heavy with implications I was reluctant to explore. What do you mean whole? We barely know each other, and you've avoided us like the plague, and yet here we are, he snapped, his patience wearing thin. The universe has a way of bringing people together. As we exchanged sharp words, a flurry of emotions chased across Lucas' face: confusion, anger, and a flicker of hope that made my heart race faster. "If you want to help," he interjected, "you need to prove that you have your mother's best interests at heart. We can't trust your intentions." With a patient demeanor, Victor squared his shoulders, his expression shifting subtly, revealing a vulnerability I had never seen before. "Fair," he said finally. "But if you look deeper, you'll find that we are not so different, you and I. There are demons I've fought to distance myself from. Your mother, she's one of them. I don't wish to lose her." The truth behind his callous exterior flickered like a dying candle flame, and I hesitated, trying to reconcile this version of Victor with the man I had known. "Why should we believe you?" I pressed, but doubt tugged at my resolve. Would I risk my mother's health by turning down potential help from my father? Just then, the nurse re-entered the room, a heavy silence following her like a dark cloak. "I'm sorry, but we need to act quickly. Your mother's condition has deteriorated. We really can't wait for a consensus. Her life depends on immediate decisions." My pulse thrummed at her words, panic ignited my thoughts. Victor's eyes locked onto mine, and for a brief moment, we were bound by a shared desperation. "Then let's make a decision," I said, my voice wavering as a surge of emotion coursed through me. "But trust is earned, not given." Victor nodded slowly, an intricate dance of pride and necessity playing on his face. "You're right. I wouldn't expect anything less." With a newfound determination, I turned to Lucas, tears brimming in my eyes. "What do you think? Can we really consider his offer?" His gaze was unwavering, filled with conflicting emotions. "I'll support whatever you choose. But know this, whatever path we take, I'm not going to let you navigate this alone." As I looked back at Victor, the tension in my heart simmered between hope and dread, the bridge we needed to cross littered with uncertainty. The next moments could change everything for my mother and for you. Could I trust him to help, or was I walking into a trap woven with his ego and ambition? My heart pounded, the weight of choice resting heavily in the air, as an unexpected truth edged closer to the surface. The foundations of our reality were on the brink of shifting, and though shadows loomed, a light flickered beyond the horizon, and with it, the possibility of unimaginable bravery ahead. The fluorescent lights flickered above, as if sensing the turmoil brewing beneath the surface of our strained interaction. The atmosphere in the room was thickened not just by desperation, but with the scent of unspoken frustrations and fears that clung to us like shadows. I could hardly breathe, squeezed in the tension thickening the air around us. Victor sat back down, gathering his thoughts as I felt Lucas's reassuring presence beside me, a solid wall against the chaos I feared. "Let's dissect this by seeking common ground," he suggested, his calm tone butting heads with the uproar of my emotions. I forced my mind to stay focused. I couldn't afford the luxury of my anger right now, not when my mother's life teetered on the edge of a knife. "What exactly does your better chance entail?" I demanded, trying to sound assertive, a facade I desperately clung to. Victor hesitated, his cool exterior momentarily cracking, revealing a glimmer of uncertainty. "Access to experimental therapies. Resources the hospital cannot provide. I have connections, and I could." He paused, a tremor running through his voice, "arrange for a consult with a specialist outside this institution. One who has successfully treated cases similar to your mother's." My instincts told me to read between the lines. I could almost feel the game he was playing, but as each word fell from his lips, my hopes flickered brighter in spite of my skepticism. Lucas squeezed my hand, pushing me to take a leap of faith, even if just for the sake of exploration. Taking a shaky breath, I asked, "And in exchange for what?" "Your terms? What does that entail?" The last words hung heavy in the air, weighing down all three of us. Victor rose somewhat, his stance shifting, going from cold to alarmingly earnest. "A meeting to discuss our options as a family. I've lost my way, and am hoping that involving myself with you will create a path back to what I've forsaken. A family." I spat, disbelief coloring my voice. "You cannot just waltz back into our lives and declare family as if it were an all-access pass." Victor's features hardened for a moment, but then softened beneath my wrath. "I have never denied how distant I've been. And trust me, I wouldn't request a relationship unless I believed that it could genuinely help your mother." Tension crackled in the air, the stillness almost palpable as a surge of emotions passed through me. Could I really do this? Could this man, who had been nothing but a ghost in my life, offer anything of value? Before I could respond, a soft knock interrupted the brewing storm, and the nurse returned, her gentle expression betrayed by the slight quiver of her lips. I apologize for intruding again, but there's been a slight development. The urgency in her tone caused my heart to skip. What sort of development? I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. It's your mother. I just received updates from her room. There's been a significant change, she said, each word feeling like a stone dropped into my chest. Lucas and I stood up in unison, the fear in our eyes aligning. What happened? I pressed, desperation seeping into every word. It appears her treatment is causing unforeseen complications. The doctors are preparing for another procedure to stabilize her condition. We need to act fast. The implications crashed over me like a wave, drowning the frayed threads of hope I had managed to grasp. My mother was slipping away, and everything I feared was about to become reality. Panic clutched at my throat, and I looked desperately at Lucas, seeking wisdom where only uncertainty resided. Victor, I turned back to him, if you think you can actually help, then now is the time to prove it. We don't have the luxury to analyze every word. His eyes narrowed in clear acknowledgement, and a flicker of something deeper twisted in his expression. Understanding. Regret? I hadn't yet figured him out, but I did perceive the urgency building within him too. I need 50% control over the decision-making, he countered, his jaw set with an unexpected firmness. Involve me in the process fully, and I will pull every string. I can. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, the lights flickered once more before plunging the room into semi-darkness, the hum of the fluorescent tubes fading. A creeping sense of foreboding shadowed my thoughts. What if this was the universe's way of warning me again? Before I could grasp the implications, the nurse waved at her phone, desperately trying to bring light back into the room. I'm sorry, she stammered, we really need to move. Time is critical. Make the call, I said, my heart battered and bruised, caught between lingering mistrust and a desperate hope that somehow Victor could indeed be my mother's last chance. Victor's expression softened, a rare moment of sincerity breaking through the steely exterior. I want to save her, he vowed, and I'll do whatever it takes to prove it. As the lights flickered back to life, I felt the weight of the world pressing down yet again. Suddenly, the door burst open, revealing two hurried doctors, faces taut with concern. The moment they stepped into the room, an unsettling realization settled over me. Something in their expressions hinted at news that would ripple farther than my wildest fears. Lucy, one of them called gently, their grave tone sending a fresh wave of dread curling through my stomach. We need to discuss your mother's situation immediately. Every inch of me felt cold, every heartbeat pounding as if it carried more weight than the last. What is it? I could barely breathe, eyes locked onto the doctor's face as he prepared to shatter what little hope clung to my heart. The moment felt suspended in time, the very air thick with uncertainty, as the door closed behind them, cutting me off from the sanctuary of the hallway and sealing in the reality of what lay ahead. Desperation mixed with the fear of the unknown, and I could sense the walls around us shifting yet again, preparing for the revelation that would plunge us all into a darker reality. As the doctor began to speak, I felt the very ground beneath my feet threaten to give way, leaving no possibility for retreat. This chapter of my life was about to redefine everything I thought I knew. The words hung in the air like a dense fog, thick and suffocating. Lucy, your mother's condition has deteriorated more than we initially assessed, the lead doctor said, his voice steady yet burdened by the weight of his message. We need to consider immediate intervention, but I want to be transparent about the risks involved. The room spun, the fluorescent lights buzzing ominously overhead as I felt Lucas beside me, his presence a tether to reality, urging me not to drift too far into the oblivion of despair. What risks? I managed to whisper, aware that every syllable I uttered could shatter the fragile structure of hope I clung to. The doctors exchanged glances. The procedure we intend to perform has a small but significant chance of complications. Given her current state, it may either stabilize her condition or worsen it dramatically. In essence, we are at a crossroads, and you'll have to make a decision quickly. Every word they spoke escaped their lips like a heavy stone, weighing down my heart as panic rose within me. We don't have time, I cried, frantic energy reverberating within me. With each passing second, it felt like my mother drifted further from reach, disappearing into the abyss I dared not envision. Lucy, Victor's voice cut through my haze, and for an instant, I could see a flicker of genuine concern in his eyes. Let's not rush into a decision. We need to think strategically. Think strategically? I interrupted, my emotion spilling over like a dam breached. My mother is at stake. If you care at all about her, about us, then you'll help me make a decision, not stall for time. I could feel my voice breaking under the pressure of my fear, and it hurt to witness the chaos erupting around us. It's true, the doctor confirmed, sensing the rising tide of emotion. But the choice cannot be taken lightly. We will need your consent, and we must be certain you understand each possibility. Underneath the rising storm of rage, doubt, and fear, a flicker of the original helplessness I had felt when first receiving news of my mother's illness returned. We have to act, I murmured, half to myself, half to the small audience of uncertainty surrounding me. I can't lose her. Not now. Victor stepped forward, a surprising resolve weaving through his tense posture. Let me help. I know the resources we can leverage, and I can have that consultant on the line in minutes. I may not have lived this with you up until now, but I want to do what's right, and that starts here. Lucas' grip tightened around my hand as if seeking to ground me, reminding me of the steadfastness we had shared throughout this chaotic journey. I found his eyes, and within their depths, he held an unshakable confidence, one I knew I might lean on, even amidst this turmoil. Okay, I breathed out, my heart racing as I nodded toward the doctors. Well, do it. We trust you, but we will need access to whatever connections you have, Victor. Now. I could feel the air change slightly at the word trust. It was a precarious word between us, yet in that moment, it felt almost like a pact, a fragile promise across generations, rendered in urgency and desperation. The doctors sprang into action, discussing the logistics of the procedure with an air of efficiency that bordered on clinical detachment. My heart, however, felt anything but distant. It was racing, erratic with emotions that shifted like sand beneath my feet. But just as the gravity of our decision began to settle, the unmistakable sound of hurried footsteps echoed behind me. I turned, startled, as a nurse burst through the door, panic etched across her face. Doctor, there's been an emergency, and we need you in surgery now. Her voice trembled with urgency, barely able to contain the trembling anxiety boiling beneath the surface. Is it my mother? My voice burst forth before I could stop myself, the raw edge of fear ripping through my carefully constructed composure. Not her. It's a different case, but they need all hands. Right away. The nurse responded. The word sent a shockwave through me, igniting a sense of foreboding I couldn't shake. Will you be back? I pressed, suddenly questioning not just the timing of the procedure but the very hands that would guide my mother through this turmoil. Of course, the doctor reassured me, though I could tell the assurance was meant more for himself than for me. With a final, tight-lipped glance, he turned to leave, urgency propelling him forward. My heart sank as the door clicked shut, sealing away that moment of connection as swiftly as it had manifested. What now? I asked, the uncertainty gnawing at the edges of my confidence. Victor shifted nervously, his expression now mirroring my growing trepidation. I'll make the calls I promised. Give me a moment, he said, stepping back as if aware of the fragile atmosphere brewing among us. The door that had just been interrupted by concern barely had a chance to settle before it swung open again, revealing a heavy-set man in a tailored suit, a stark contrast to the sterile setting of the hospital room. He was someone I had never encountered before, and yet beneath the grim confidence written across his face, I could see echoes of deals brokered and promises made. Lucy, I'm here on behalf of a private emergency specialist who has the resources we desperately need. There's a chance to intervene and save your mother, but we need to talk now. The room narrowed around me, the horror of unfamiliarity and new avenues beginning to unfurl in my mind. Who was this man, and what could he mean for my mother's fate? Before I could voice my realization, I sensed Lucas stiffen beside me, his eyes widening as he glanced at me in alarm, and in that moment of uncertainty, a new wave of anticipation washed over me. That new challenge was about to unfurl. The ground felt unsteady beneath my feet as I glanced between the two men, the consequences of this moment casting shadows deeper than anything I had previously known. The choices ahead were more complex than I had ever imagined, each bearing the weight of my mother's life intertwined with the spectrums of trust and betrayal. The air felt heavy with unspoken words, each moment stretching to prevent me from forging ahead. I needed to snap out of this surreal state, this relentless limbo that felt all too familiar in these sterile walls. My eyes flitted between Lucas, who wore concern etched on his face, and this new man who had invaded our world with an unwavering intensity. "What do you mean?" I finally managed, forcing my voice to break free from the constraints of fear that wrapped tightly around me. "And names aren't as important as the choices that will follow," the man replied, his demeanor calm amidst the storm converging around us. "You have an opportunity to explore options that could turn the tide. Your mother's situation is precarious, and traditional avenues may not yield the results you seek." Lucas caught my gaze, and I could feel our silent conversation. We were drowning in uncertainty. Every breath was weighted with the reality that each second drew my mother away from us, teetering on the brink of the unknown. "What resources are you talking about?" I pressed again, my heart racing like wild horses in a frantic stampede. He hesitated, as if the answer was tethered to revelations that had the power to fracture our already splintered lives further. Connections to experimental treatment not accessible through the hospital system. High risk, but potentially high reward. Access to specialists who work outside the corporate confines of this institution. My insides twisted at the implications of his words. Standing at the precipice of hope or horror, the decisions lining up in unending rows before me felt insurmountable. "What's the catch?" I pressed, suspicion creeping back into my mind, a deep-rooted instinct to protect my family rising to the surface. "A full commitment is required." "I can arrange the meeting with the specialist," he explained, each word dripped with urgency. "But I can't guarantee safety or success. You have to weigh your options, see the possibilities before plunging in. Sometimes, the light at the end of the tunnel bears shadows." I could feel sweat collecting at my temples, the revelation of these choices threatening to overwhelm me. I wanted to retreat from the insistent pull of truth that danced just out of reach. From the corner of my eye, I saw Victor tensing, his expression shifting as unpredictability took center stage. "If this is a game, I don't want to play it," he stated harshly, arms crossing defiantly over his chest. "But we don't have the luxury of hesitation." "Luxury is a privilege, Mr. Stroud," the newcomer returned sharply, revealing little concern for the weight of the past that now echoed within that room. "Every second counts. The waiting is what eats souls alive, keeping them in an endless loop of uncertainty." His words slammed over me, a kind of ultimatum that pinned me in shackles of choice, weighed down by my mother's life and the faith I held toward my family, whatever that would eventually mean. "Lucy, what do you want to do?" Lucas asked softly, eyes filled with an unwavering understanding that formed an anchor in the tumult of my spiraling thoughts. My heart raced as I realized this moment was mine to shape, mine alone. "I want to fight for her. I need to fight for her," I murmured, the conviction swelling as I took a deep breath. "If we do take that plunge, we can't look back. We can't afford to regret." The man raised an eyebrow, and I could see Victor digesting my words from the other side of the table, weighing possibilities against the bitter residue of our shared history. Lucas squeezed my hand tightly once more, his warmth guiding me through the blustering storm. We were in this together, concealed against the world's chaos that would leave us powerless if we didn't find our footing. "Then let's do it," I said, my voice steadier, imbued with a piercing resolve. "We'll meet with this specialist. We'll explore every option if that means bringing her back with that." The man nodded, revealing the faintest glimmer of respect. "Stay close. There are layers yet to uncover. The deeper you go, the more complicated it gets. I need you to be ready for whatever emerges." Just as I began to step forward, ready to heed the calling of the fight, an urgent buzz interrupted. The woman from before stepped in, her face drained of color as she rushed toward us. "We have a situation. There isn't much time." "Another emergency?" Lucas questioned sharply, heart racing in rhythm with the urgency that suddenly filled the room. "No. It's about your mother," she exclaimed, breathless. "She's coded. We're losing her." My heart plummeted, the world around us shattering as her words rang with an ominous finality. My blood ran cold, hope shattered into 1,000 irretrievable pieces. Everything I had clutched so fiercely slipped away in that instant. Victor lunged toward the door, urgency turning the sleek tailored suit into something frantic, yet I stood paralyzed, voice caught in the tightening vice of fear. "No!" I screamed, my own desperate cries spiraling into panic. "We can't, Lucy, we need to act. Now!" the man from earlier declared fiercely. With trembling resolution, I began to move, every instinct igniting, shoving urgency behind every footfall forward. "Where?" I gasped, scanning the fast-moving chaos before me. The nurse's hand slipped gently into mine, her stern gaze unwavering. "This way, we don't have time to waste," she cried, leading us down the fluorescent-lined corridor toward the operating room, where moments would decide the trajectory of all our lives. Desperation clawed at me, a dark monster fed by trembling fears that threatened to swallow me whole. Yet, amidst that turmoil, the flicker of determination remained the flicker of strength burgeoning beneath layers of pain. As we rushed through the swinging doors, I felt Lucas race alongside me, the warmth of his spirit intertwining with mine, a testament that even in the face of despair, I could find solace. The sterile environment unfurled before us, and my heart raced with dread as I caught sight of my mother being wheeled away, the daunting hum of machines around her blending with the chaos of my swirling emotions as urgency filled the air. "Mom, please!" I cried out, pushing through the thudding silence that bound my voice. "Not now, Lucy. We need to stabilize her," a doctor's voice commanded, but I pressed on with the urgency of every heartbeat laced into the fabric of desperation, and in that moment, I understood the weight of choices yet to come intertwined with promises unbroken. My mother's life tethered to love and courage within those walls. As I stood at a cliff's edge, preparing to plunge into the depths of uncertainty without looking back with Lucas steadfast beside me, I realized that the darkness could not invade the resolve ignited within. That somehow, against every ounce of adversity, we would fight once more for love, for family, and for every life worth clasping hands with one last time. As I took a deep breath and leaned into the uncertainty, I felt the roots of resilience plunge deeper, and amidst the churning despair, I realized that hope would find a way. Because when the stakes are at their highest, there is always a reason to rise, to fight, and to believe in the power of what binds us together, against the tide of fate. And with that unwavering light illuminating the shadows, I whispered, "We're coming for you, Mom. Just hold on."